One thing, before we move into that, one thing that stuck out for me across the season is sort of how patients always describe having that very same experience, arriving at the clinical appointment, having connected all of their own data. You've talked about your massive binder that you take with you, a whole history in a notes app or an actual physical folder, feeling that they're the only person in the room holding the very full picture of the whole thing. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, and I think we heard that from so many different angles, especially clinicians and patients that we spoke to and that I speak to regularly. And I think, again, there's like multiple aspects to that. But I think the main kind of theme that it comes down to is that patients still have to be their main advocates, and it's such hard work, especially in the rare disease field, when a disease is unknown and it takes years and years towards diagnosis, right? I recently said to someone, my diagnosis took a year, and they looked at me and said, oh, that's really short anyways, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, I was really lucky, right? But it shows you that, you need to know your symptoms, your treatment, your medications, the how those medications work. Most of them have really difficult names, or like why you get certain treatments, and you need to be the person that knows everything inside out. So I think as a patient, you have to be that advocate and get these data. And for me personally, I think data was really important, especially at the beginning of my disease, because my cognition was really impacted and I was really fatigued. I was on heavy pain medication. A lot of medication really changed kind of my brain chemistry, how I slept, how I thought, and how I functioned. And so having data was really important because they allowed me to show something quantitative. For example, how much sleep I needed, how fatigued I was, how functional I was, or how unfunctional I was. So data was really, really important. But I think especially kind of the last few episodes, what they really honed into was that there might be data and patients might have data, but there's no way of actually bringing them together. And I think that's the thing that still shocks me the most, because it would be so easy to have an app and pull everything together, but even with the NHS app, it's not working, right? And so again, you fall back onto patients having this famous red binder, or having something on their phone, random notes and stuff, because there's just no way of kind of bringing them together. At least I'm not aware of it. If any of the listeners are, please do let us know. But we had this really nice conversation in the last episode that we will be talking about with Jason, that tries and bring data together. So we'll come back to that a little bit later, but I think that was one of the main takeaways from this season for me.
But yes, before the clips start, just wanted to add a little something else to prefix it all. When I started planning this season with you, because it was my suggestion that this is an incredibly personal thing for you, Elisabeth, and it's like, yeah, I thought I probably knew a fair amount about the rare diseases world. I'm a scientist. I've worked across the life sciences for a long time now, written about numerous areas multiple times. One of the hats I wear is like a medical writer as well, so I know all the terminology. I speak doctor. But what I didn't understand about this whole thing was the entire sort of texture of it, like the delay in diagnosis that you're talking about, the gap between having a name for something and having a treatment for it. And, as we saw in our latest episode, these can go incorrectly diagnosed for years. In one of the main stats that I've pulled out from Jason's episode was it a quarter, 1 in 4 IBS sufferers are actually celiac. So they're misdiagnosed. That's one example of probably hundreds of misdiagnoses, and it's crazy how this area is so like lack of understanding, isn't it? The energy it takes every single day for patients to manage a condition that most people can't see. So this season's closed that gap for me, but only a little, because there's so much to talk about in it. There's so much more for me to learn there's so much more for all of our listeners to learn. There's so much more for probably you to learn. You know, you only have 3 of them. There's thousands out there. Collect a couple more, like Pokemon cards, as you said, and
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
don't do that.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, this is exactly what science communication is supposed to do. And yeah, I think it's, you know, it's such a vast area that we couldn't cover it all in one season.